And this is the WOLFBOX G900 mirror dashcam. And I have already reviewed this on full detail. If you guys want to see that review video, I'll put a link to it in the description down below. On this video, I'm going to show you the full setup menu for it, as well as my recommended settings for it. And I have also placed a link in the description down below to this dashcam in case you want to get one. But with that being said, let's get started. Now notice that when I tap on the mirror, you get these icons on the bottom, and we're going to use this one to get to the setup menu. But before I do that, I want to show you an interesting feature that was not available when I first reviewed this mirror. Notice how I'm able to adjust the view up and down. This is for the rear camera, and that was available before. However, if you go in this direction, on this side, you got brightness adjustment. That was also available by swiping up and down. If I go further this way, notice what happens. Now we got a zoom feature on it. Now, why is this neat? Well, as you notice, mirror dashcams give you a wider view of the road, and some people feel that this might be too wide. Now, I personally like the wide view. I think it gives me more coverage and kind of reduces blind spots. But if you have a hard trouble using the wide view, you can use the zooming feature to reduce, or basically to narrow down the view, so this looks closer to what your original mirror, your standard mirror, look like. And it's also neat to be able just to zoom in the video like this. Very rare feature, not very common on mirror dashcams. But let's go into the settings. I'm gonna go ahead and tap that settings icon, and the very first setting is gonna be resolution, and here you get two choices: to run the front at 4K and the rear stays at 2.5K, or lower the resolution so both the front and the rear run at 2.5K. Now, what is the advantage of decreasing the resolution? Well, that you can fit more into your memory card, potentially more hours of video. And if you select 4K, the files are gonna be larger in size, so you're gonna potentially carry less amount of hours of video. Now, most car accidents don't take hours for it to happen, so you could potentially get the best video quality by selecting 4K, but there are some advantages to carrying a ton of video if perhaps you want to go back through those records. So there is an advantages to decreasing the resolution. You're still going to get great video at 2.5K and being able to carry a ton more of video onto your memory card. Next up is split time. Dashcams record video continuously, but they segment that video into smaller manageable clips. And here you can select how long you want those clips of video to be, either 1 minute, 3 minutes, or 5 minutes in length. Now, if you select 1 minute in length, you could potentially end up with a lot of 1 minute files. Now, this is just mainly a matter of preference. I like 3 minutes. I think this is a nice in between when I have not a lot of small files and not a lot of large files, just a nice in between. Moving over to video encode, and here you get two choices: 264 or 265. Now, either one of them is going to give you great image quality. What this is referring to is the file size. 265 allows the file size to be compressed, so the video file size is going to be smaller. Again, if you have smaller files, you can carry longer hours of video on the dashcam. 264 takes more space, the file sizes are larger. However, it has the advantage that it's more compatible if you are planning to play the videos on a phone that's an older phone, or on a computer that's an older computer. If you have a newer phone or a newer computer, H265 is gonna be the way to go. Smaller files, great image quality, and it's gonna play good on those newer phones and newer computers. Sound recording: if you don't wanna have your conversations recorded, you can turn the sound recording off and the dashcam is only gonna record video. However, I think this is an important piece of evidence, so I'm gonna leave mine on. Moving over to G-sensor sensitivity. This dashcam can detect when you get into a car crash based on a sensor, and here you can tell it how sensitive you want that sensor to be. Now here, if you go too high, potentially any little bump on the road may make the dashcam thinking that you're crashing left to right, and here you wanna play with this setting and find the sweet spot. On some vehicles that will have a very harsh suspension or have large rims, setting it too high is gonna give you, again, a lot of false car crashes, and you may want to decrease that to low. Again, this varies from vehicle to vehicle. I do not recommend that you turn it off, because if you turn it off and you get into a car accident, the video is going to be on the dashcam. However, it is not going to be flagged and protected, meaning that you're going to have to remember to get that video out of there otherwise it could potentially eventually disappear. So in order for that video to be protected and flagged, you want to select out of this low, medium, or high, again depending on your vehicle type. Moving over to park mode, this option is only going to be available if the dashcam is hardwired with the optional hardwire kit, and we get two choices: collision boot recording or time-lapse recording for parking monitoring. Now, what happens under collision recording? If you enable this, when the dashcam goes into park mode, the dashcam is gonna go to sleep, but then if somebody impacts the vehicle, the dashcam turns on and makes a record of that event. And here you can select how sensitive you want the dashcam to be to waking up, either high, medium, or low. Here, just like before, if you set it at high, it may be a little too sensitive, and you may be capturing a lot of false park mode incidents, perhaps cars passing by with a loud exhaust, and you could potentially decrease it if you wanted to reduce the number of false alerts. Now, if you turn this off, then you can enable time-lapse recording. Time-lapse is different than collision recording because now the dashcam is going to create a time-lapse of the entire time that the car was under parking mode with 3 different time settings. You can select up to 12 hours, up to 24 hours of monitoring, or up to a 48-hour time-lapse of monitoring. And the time-lapse can also be customized further by going into time-lapse. The time-lapse, the way it works, it takes a picture every so often, and that's how it's able to compress many hours of video into a time-lapse. And here you can select for it to take 1 picture every second, 2 pictures every second, or 3 pictures every second. If you go to 3 pictures every second, the time-lapse is gonna look smoother. If you go to 1 picture every second, the time-lapse is gonna look choppier, but the file size is gonna be smaller. Now, I personally think if you're gonna run this into time-lapse, I will recommend 3 pictures every second. That way you can have the most amount of detail on that time-lapse. It's gonna run smoother, especially if you need to slow it down to see what happened. The file size is gonna be larger, but I think for parking monitoring purposes, I prefer 3 pictures every second for a maximum amount of detail. And again, here selecting the appropriate amount of time-lapse record that you desire. Next up is gonna be flicker. Here you wanna select 50 Hz if you're in Europe, or 60 Hz if you are in the United States. And this is gonna help to reduce any flickering of any lights that you may potentially record. Moving over to screensaver mode, this allows the dashcam to turn off the screen after a certain period of time, either after 15 seconds, 1 minute, or 3 minutes, while the dashcam continues recording in the background in what I call stealth mode, so this looks like a mirror and nobody knows that you're recording. Now, if you want to have your screen on all the time, you want to select off. And that is the option that I use because I like to use my mirror as a digital mirror. And under time screensaver, you get some minimal information on the screen. So in my opinion, I will either have it turn off the screen completely for complete stealth recording, or I will turn it off if you wanted to use this all the time as a digital mirror. Next up is click tone, and all this does, it enables a beeping sound when you tap on the dashcam. In my opinion, it's a little bit annoying, so I'm gonna turn this off. And you could also adjust the volume. Here you can fine tune that or turn off all the sounds altogether by setting it all the way to the lowest setting. And screen brightness adjusts the brightness of the screen. Now, I don't really use this one because I'm able to adjust the brightness directly from the main screen, so I think this is more convenient than going inside of the settings menu to adjust it. And under display mode, you can select what view you are shown when the dashcam first turns on, either the front view, rear view, or the split view. Now, the split view can be customized as far as if you want the front camera on this side and the rear camera on this side, or if you want the rear camera on this side and the front camera on the opposite side. Now, flipping those views in the split view is not a common option that I see on dash cams, and this gives flexibility to people who just want to switch the position, basically which side, either the front or the rear camera is shown. I personally prefer to have this show the rear view by default every time it turns on because, again, I like to use this as a digital rear view mirror. Moving over to the next section of settings, rear image adjustment. Now, this pertains to the rear camera. It can be adjusted in a couple different ways, and take a look at the very first one, rear flip. Now I'm gonna show you what that looks like by going into here. Notice the view for the rear, notice the car, and notice the road. Now I'm gonna go back inside of there and we're gonna change that setting, rear image adjustment. We're gonna turn that on and notice what happened. Everything is upside down. Now this option is used if the camera on the rear was mounted upside down. Turning this function on will correct for that view. In this case, since my camera is not installed like that, I'm gonna turn this off, that way it looks correct. And the next option, rear mirror, is very similar. I'm gonna show you again what that looks like. Notice again the position of the road and the position of the car. Let's go back in here and I'm gonna change this to off and I'm gonna go back to the front and notice what happens. Everything got flipped. Now, this does not look like a mirror image, meaning if I was sitting on my vehicle looking through a regular mirror, this does not look at all like that. Now, everything is on the opposite side and could potentially be dangerous to drive with it like this. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and turn that thing back on. And here, rear mirror. And now notice that this represents what it would look like if I was looking through a normal mirror. This is on the correct side, the road is on the correct side. So therefore, I personally like to leave that setting enabled. And time display controls the information that is shown right here. Now it doesn't really bother me, but it does look a little cleaner if you turn that off. I'm gonna go ahead here and turn this off and notice that now there's nothing on here. And most vehicles already have the time and date display somewhere else. So turning this off, notice how it can leave you with a very clean screen. That way you have no distractions on it. The next option, 24-hour, allows you to adjust the time format, either 12-hour for AM, PM time, or 24-hour if you like military time. Daylight savings time, this is only going to be applicable if you live on a place that observes that. By either enabling or disabling this function, you are able to add or subtract an hour every time that daylight savings time kicks in. And moving over to time format, here you can select which one you want to use, and this is again just a matter of preference. Moving over to reverse mode. Now this is for the parking assist function, and we get two choices, either full screen or panorama. Let's take a look at how full screen appears when you go into parking assist. I'm gonna put the vehicle on reverse and notice that the view changes and we get those reverse guidelines. And the important part is notice that the entire screen is showing me the rear view. If I select panorama, this is how it's gonna look like. Now notice I can see all the way to the top and all the way to the bottom in this single screen. If I go back to the full screen, notice that I lost the top and I lost the bottom. Now this is mainly a matter of preference, where you wanna see the bottom or the top, or if you wanted to see it in this full screen view. I personally like the full screen view because if I really wanted to see the top or the bottom, I am able just to swipe up and down on the screen and that can show me either the top or the bottom. And I can always tap on this to switch back and forward between the two settings. And regarding these icons right here, all they do is they control how far the guidelines go out in that direction. You can have them in high, medium, or low. And this is gonna vary from vehicle to vehicle and also depending on what position you have this as far as parking assist view. I normally set mine about right here and then I try to find one that fits my vehicle. This one right here is gonna be the closest one and I'm actually gonna fine tune that a little better. Right about here. And fatigue reminder allows the dashcam to remind you every 2 hours to take a break from driving. Speed unit allows you to change this between kilometers per hour or miles per hour. And under time zone, remember this dashcam is getting the date and time automatically from the GPS, and it's gonna be important that you set the correct time zone that you are located on. Otherwise, the GPS could give you the wrong date and potentially the wrong time. And there's nothing to change under GPS information. This just shows you the current coordinates that you are located at. Next up is GPS display. Notice what happens if I turn this function on. Now you get this little compass that shows you the direction you're heading and your speed, but I personally turn that off because, as I mentioned earlier, I really like a clean display. So by turning off the date and time information and turning off the GPS compass, again, I end up with a very clean view of the road. Moving over to languages, it actually includes quite a bit of languages if you wanted to change it from the default one. And moving over to the last section, format SD card. This allows you to delete all the videos on the memory card at once by hitting confirm. It is also recommended to use this function every time a brand new memory card is installed. You always want to format it in the dashcam using the format memory card option. And reset factory, all it does, it returns the dashcam to its factory defaults. And to see the current software that the dashcam is running, that is under about, you can see on here the firmware version, and you also have this QR code if you needed help from WOLFBOX. And now that you understand the full setup menu for the WOLFBOX G900, you may want to check out my full review video for it so you can see the rest of its features. I'll put a link to that video in the description down below, along with a link to the dashcam in case you want to get one. And if you guys have any other questions regarding this, please put that in the comments down below. If you found any part of this video helpful, make sure you hit the like button to support the channel, and stay tuned as I have a lot more dashcam reviews coming up. Thank you guys for watching, and as always, I'll see you on the next one.